to another episode of Retail Media Thursdays. My name is Michelle Irwin, and today I'm close to home in Chiswick with Paul Dahill from Koddi. Paul, welcome to Retail Media Thursdays.
Hi Michelle, thank you for having me.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I am Paul. I am a bit of a retail media enthusiast. I started out my career at Amazon. I was over at Hook Logic, which is in the early days of sponsored products, and then moved into Criteo, and now at Koddi. So yeah.
You are a retail media enthusiast. You've been everywhere.
I am a retail media enthusiast, yes.
So before we get on to the retail media questions, which I know you're excited for, do you want to tell us which pub you were in and why you chose it?
I will, Michelle. This pub is called the Bull's Head, which is a bit of a favourite. It's about 10 minutes walk from where I live, and it's got a lot of history, so I'd recommend coming down here. So what you can see kind of out of the window over there, Michelle, is a small island in the river called Oliver's Island. And because I love this stuff with the history of London, right? And legend has it that when Oliver Cromwell was on the run, he escaped and kind of hid out on that island, and there's a secret tunnel underneath the river between this pub and Oliver's Island where they were passing supplies backwards and forwards from him. So yeah, and then if anyone's interested in learning a bit more about this pub, I would Google the Bull's Head Chiswick and then go to the videos, and you'll see the river comes up really high here, and it actually comes up above the window sometimes, which is kind of wild. But, yeah.
I used to live in Richmond, and it did the same.
Oh really?
When I went to those
the
pubs
White
there.
Cross,
yeah.
I think. Yeah, nice.
And what's been your peak of the week? It's only a Monday, so.
Yeah, so I guess the peak of the week was an unusual one. So I had a really important meeting which moved. So this was earlier in the week, and that's fine, it's moved, it's been rescheduled, but it meant that I had this time in my day. So being in the ad sales, ad tech space with Koddi, it gave me this sort of chunk of the day where I could actually dive into the platform in a kind of geeky way a little bit here and like start to see some of the new features, the new developments, try and get my head around them, because I always feel like as a salesperson in tech, you've got to see it yourself and kind of walk through it. So yeah, it gave me a chance to, so that was kind of a geeky answer, but that was my peak of the week.
That's a good peak of the week. I am going to make a confession. I worked at Sky for nearly 9 years, and it was only 2 weeks ago that I logged into the platform for the first time. Well,
I hear this a lot. I do hear this a lot, and I always kind of think, well, if you were going to buy a car, this is not a judgment, it's going to massively sound like it. If you're going to buy a car and the salesperson said, oh, I don't know how to drive it, I need someone else to do the driving for you, what does that say about the car, right? So I think in the ad technology space, you've got to like get to grips with the tech yourself, but anyway, it's kind of a bugbear of mine, but there you go.
So you called yourself a retail media enthusiast.
Yes.
But there is a lot of kind of bubble bursting talk out there at the moment. Are we over the hype? What do you see happening, especially with kind of Amazon leading? Do you think the long tail are going to start to struggle? Like, how do they differentiate themselves?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. So I think the differentiation, the way to win in this space is about differentiation, and it's about thinking about what makes you unique and then bringing that to life. So I've got kind of two parts to this answer. I think the first part is, what is it that makes you unique? Often that is to do with the data that you hold. So we work with a food delivery business. So Koddi, for those that are not familiar, is predominantly an ad server, but we also work in kind of the demand space as well. So we provide an ad server solution to a quick commerce food delivery business. Now they don't operate at the same scale as someone like a big grocer, right? So their first party data isn't at that scale. But however, in the Q-commerce space, they obviously hold a lot of geo data, so their data is quite unique. So they're able to go to advertisers with really interesting kind of real-time audiences based on the location of those individuals. I think one of them is around like college kids, etc. So there's things that they can do to kind of like punch above their weight. And then I think on the other side, there is to do with the sort of insights that you can provide from your first-party data. Again, that can make you unique. So I was talking to a retailer in Germany, and they were talking about how it's no longer that you just stay on the plan because you deliver against return on ad spend goals, right? It's about what insights do you bring. And I think outside of retail media, Snap, I think, is a good example where they sort of punch above their weight and stay on the plan because they provide really interesting insights. So I'm starting to see that in retail media, and we have something in the system where you can analyze audiences even if you weren't targeting them. So if you imagine you're running a campaign with that retailer, you go back and say, okay, this is how the campaign performed, but did you know these were these 5 audiences? If you had been targeting these 5 audiences, this is how it would have performed. This is how your return on ad spend would have been. And I think, okay, that's interesting in terms of, great, I might target them on my next campaign, but when it gets interesting is when that goes into the C-level of the advertiser or supplier, who can then take learnings from that they may want to apply with the rest of their business. So I think the first part of my answer is, what makes it unique is the data and how can you use that in interesting ways. And then the second part of it is, how do you make yourself easier to buy? Right? And this obviously aligns well with the conversation we're having today. And I think we're seeing a move into the kind of democratization of buying. And buying via programmatic channels, maybe buying via the UI if you prefer to do that. Maybe it's a managed service, or maybe it's on platforms like Sky. So I think making it easier to buy and making sure your platform is going where the buyers are.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a whole conversation we could have around that. But I'm going to pick up something you said around the data and the insights. I think one of the things we're hearing a lot of people crying out for are incrementality insights.
Yes.
Now, I saw that you're speaking at an event and you're arguing against incrementality. What is all that about?
Okay. Well, a little known fact about me, Michelle, is that at university I studied philosophy. Which means I love an argument, right? Then we can get into one of those maybe as the drinks flow, but there you go. So, but this particular thing is like an Oxford-style debate. So I think the message is that incrementality will eventually replace ROAS, right? It's going to be the savior. So I'm arguing against that point. So we're at Koddi a huge believer in incrementality. So we are running incrementality reports as a managed service, but we're actually now, one of the things that's playing around within the system is we're now introducing it into the UI, right? So enabling retail media networks to go in and just say, yes, I'd also like to run incrementality tests against these campaigns. So I'm a big believer. My challenge with us believing that incrementality is going to be the sort of silver bullet, it comes down to what was the objective of the campaign initially? Right, and if you think about P&G, lots of their campaigns are about, growing the category, right? Or maybe market share. Maybe there's an NPD, right? So new product development that they're trying to promote. But sometimes the lowest common denominator of all those campaigns is ROAS, right? And we're kind of guilty of all doing that, I think, when we're analyzing campaigns. I worry that there becomes a new lowest common denominator, which is incrementality. So, okay, we increased our market share, yeah, but was it incremental? Well, that wasn't actually the objective of the campaign. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a fun debate. I feel like I've just done the debate now. Spoilers.
I hope your counterpart isn't listening. They know your entire argument now. One of the other areas that's getting a bit of, I guess, not negative press, but a lot of talk about it at the moment is off-site media. Do you think that's overhyped as well, or do you think it's an area that is going to grow massively?
Well, I think it already is massive. So if I think about Koddi's business, we do a lot of work outside of retail, also in the travel and other areas of commerce. And we're working with travel partners in that side where they're investing in off-site media together, right, in a kind of co-marketing way. And there's billions of dollars of revenue flowing through that for those parties. And I think the crucial thing about that and why that works so well is that, look, co-marketing isn't anything new, right? Two partners joining together and working together for mutual benefit. And I think that's the key thing in off-site is this really working well for both parties? Are both people seeing value? Is it about driving traffic for the retailer, great, at a discounted price? And is it about driving that traffic back towards your particular product? So I think it works really well. One of the other things I think with off-site is I think it's maybe a falsehood that buyers of retail media see it as being distinct. I think increasingly they just see retail media as, I go into someone like Tesco or Sainsbury's, and really I'm expecting them to come back with a quite an omni-channel approach, and Off-Site will probably take part of that. So I think we worry too much that it's the be-all and end-all, but it's just part of that kind of set.
I think the other challenge with it is that I know a lot of the people that we speak to, it sits in another team. They're seeing it as like a brand awareness play, or they think, oh, it's not me, so it's not joined together, and they're not approaching it in that kind of omni-channel way, which I think is something that will have to change.
Yeah, I agree. Within the agencies, you mean?
Within the agencies, even within the brands, it's kind of like, oh, that sits in the social team, or that sits in the display team, which isn't relevant to me because I sit in the e-commerce team and work closer to the bottom line.
The silos thing. I mean, there's a lot of retail media content in breaking down the silos, right, within the brand and with the agency. So I think, that's certainly a big part of it.
You mentioned just now that you don't just work with the retailers, you work with other companies kind of in the broader, I guess, commerce media ecosystem. So travel companies, I know you've just signed Check Trade recently.
That's right.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
How are advertisers thinking about these non-kind of retail media networks and approaching those as part of their media plans?
I think that's a great question. So I love this space, right? I love that. And I think sometimes being a retail media enthusiast, maybe should be more of a commerce media enthusiast, because really, what is it that ties all these different organizations together, right? I think one is, in most cases, they own the conversion event, right? Mm-hmm. So you can certainly think about that in travel. You can think about that maybe even in something like Check a Trade, where someone's making a search for a particular service provider, and they say, great, and there's the phone call is made. So in some ways, that's a kind of conversion event. So I think that ties it together. And then also another thing I think in terms of commerce media is like, as we know, a big part of retail media today is Amazon, right? And a big part of that is search, right? But why, right? Mainly because it's solving a discoverability problem. So if you think about these other types of media within commerce media, does that discoverability problem exist? So think about if you're going on to Zoopla, right, or one of these real estate portals. In Chiswick, there might be, 350 different properties which are available within the price range that you're looking at. Well, if I'm one of those sellers, it makes sense that I might want to boost that, right, and get that towards the top. So you can apply that same kind of logic from the advertiser's perspective in many, many different places. It could be, I'm looking for an agency to help me on a project, right? There could be a portal that's built that. So I think that's a big part that ties it together. I think perhaps the area that is slightly to the side, and I still think we're thinking about how that will work, is things like the fintech. Yeah. Because a lot of this, right, especially in terms of retail media, is about what's going on the owned and operated properties, right? So I'm going in, I'm making a purchase. If I think about my experience, let's say, Michelle, you said, Paul, are you going to give me that £100 that you owe me? Right?
Are you?
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
Forgot about that.
Yeah, so I get my app out, right? And then I go, I pause, and I'm sitting here. You say, well, you're gonna transfer the money or what? So, sorry, I have to watch this ad.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
No, it's not right. It's going to be annoying. So it gets in the way of it's really, I'm using my app in most cases, I think, just to do something quite simple. So therefore, in that scenario, I think it's going to be more about how can you capitalize on that data, and then perhaps use Off-Site or some of these other types of channels, or drive people in because I'm looking for rewards, and maybe there's options for me within there. But yeah, I think there's something that ties these different channels together, or these different verticals. But I think there is some clear differentiators between them we need to keep in mind.
It's going to be tough for the advertisers. There's so many different publishers or networks, whatever we want to call them nowadays, to pick from as we go forward.
This is true. Although, if you think about the what they used to have, without actually any conversion data off the back, you can look at it from a light and shade perspective.
Yeah, it's true. I guess we've talked about a lot of areas kind of or we've talked about the hype and the bubble bursting, but what are you most excited for in retail media that you're seeing at the moment?
Okay, I think I am going to say the AI. We've got to say AI, right?
I
think so. But okay, here's what I'm not. I think when people talk about AI, they need to talk about concrete examples, right? And apparently the concrete example at the moment is creating an action figure out of yourself. But anyway, let's put that one to one side. So I think the thing that, within the Koddi system, you can set up AI-based automated optimization, right? As in, I want to run against this return on ad spend, go, and off you go, right? And you would expect at this point, there's a similar system within Sky, right? I think you just launched Celeste, which I was following. Very excited to hear more about that. I think that to some extent now should be table stakes. Right? So I'm less interested in that. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but you should have that. And I think if anyone's watching and their ad server doesn't have, automated bidding in it, we'll get in touch, right? Yeah. So I think the bit that I find interesting is about how can we use AI to bring in advertisers that are within the torso and the long tail. So I think most retail media networks do a really good job of covering off the head, right? That 20% that's driving the majority of the revenue. Really great case studies we see all the time. But honestly, the advertisers involved, they look quite similar, especially from a grocery perspective. It's the same type of advertisers. What about the rest of them? And retail media networks don't have the resource to be contacting all these other partners. So one thing that I've seen is we've been introducing AI recommendations. So it might say, hey, did you realize these particular brands here, if they were advertising at this point, this is the kind of return on ad spend they might achieve. Or these advertisers that are already working with you, these suppliers, if they were bidding slightly higher, they would still be around the ROAS goal, but they'd be doubling in terms of their kind of volumes because they'd be now better placed in terms of the auction, right? That's if there's a manual bidding going on. So there's all different types of recommendation. And what I found interesting is that you can actually set it so those recommendations are linked to the retail media network CRM, so into Salesforce, and it then pings the people at those suppliers automatically to say, hey, here's an opportunity for you. I mean, not too frequently, you would manage that. And then, are you interested? Would you like to get in touch or accept this recommendation? Which then can, if it's a managed service, it can come back in and they can start to deliver. So I think those are the kind of real kind of life use cases of AI that I get quite excited about.
Yeah, they've got to start helping you overcome those challenges, like for the retailers being able to drive the demand to those networks, especially amongst the long tail, as you say.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Nice.
Well, it's been good talking about retail media. When we spoke, and you actually alluded to it during our conversation now, you like an argument, or you like like to be controversial, you said.
Well, I'm not controversial, but I do. I enjoy an argument.
Well, I'm not going to argue with you, but I am going to tell you 5 things, and I'm going to see, they're very controversial things, like people either are one way or the other with these things, so I want to see which way you lean.
Is this a career-defining moment?
It could be.
Okay.
I'm going to get my notes out because I can't remember what they were.
Okay.
Okay, so pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
I mean, yes, but I wouldn't normally do it. It's a bit weird to do it normally. Yeah.
It's a big no for me.
It's right now. Yeah. Okay, okay.
Gravy on your chips.
Curry on the chips.
Afternoon naps, yes or no?
Well, I've just got this Whoop app thing, which is a very kind of middle-aged thing to do. I do realise that, like a monetary thing, a health thing. Yeah. And it's all about it's like sleep is the most important thing, which I think we all have some understanding of that. So anyway, the long answer is, I kind of started a little bit, a weekend, I might just do a catch-up sleep, so to get myself back into the green, but anyway.
I'm very much there with you. I love an afternoon nap. Netflix or Spotify, if you had to get rid of one forever, which one would it be?
Netflix.
Oh.
Yeah, I would miss Love is Blind. Did I say that? God.
These career-defining moments.
That was it, right there.
Coming thick and fast. All meetings should be email, yes or no?
All meetings should be email. I don't understand the question.
So you don't have to do anything over the phone or Zoom,
I don't really. Can they be Slack?
No. Oh well, yes. Basically, no meetings forevermore. Like no Zoom meetings forevermore. Yes or no?
Oh, yeah, well, I'd rather do a meeting than an email, for sure.
Really?
For sure. Well,
I'm the opposite. I'd rather do an email.
yeah, I mean, internal. I think I'm a big believer in like 5 minute, 10 minute. Can I just discuss, or go into Slack and press the huddle button and go.
Oh, that's the worst.
Oh, I just look.
If someone huddles me, I'm like, no, I need to be prepared to talk to you.
Yeah, I feel like you can get a lot resolved really quickly, but I love this. Yeah, this is. I knew we'd have a debate.
Well, it has been good talking. Thank you so much for meeting me in Chiswick, and look forward to working together more.
Yeah, love it. Thank you.